Hi and welcome to Leitrim Daily. My name is Breifne and you're listening to the Sports Preview Show here on the podcast. It is of course brought to you in association with a local business today, and that is Train and Gain in the Mulvey Centre in Courtubber in Carrick-on-Shannon. Now it's a busy weekend and we have a really extended show today because of all the activity that's taken place over the next couple of days around the county and of interest to the people living in the county. We're going to start with Gaelic football, and we face Offaly in the National Football League. It's the fourth round of the National Football League, the halfway point, and it is a must-win game if we are to try and survive in Division 3 this year and not face an immediate return to Division 4. It took us long enough to get out of Division 4 the last time, and nobody wants that. I'll be talking to Donal Wrynn ahead of that crunch game for the senior footballers in Park Sean on Sunday at 2 p.m. At the same time, in Markovitz Park in Sligo, our Hurlers are in action, and after beating Cavan last week, they'll be hoping to get back to winning ways and get to the top of the table. All 5 teams in that competition currently on 2 points in the league. So Sligo, with only the one game played, will be hoping to extend their lead. Leitrim doing their best to make sure it's them at the top of the table in that Division 3B clash. Sunday afternoon throw-in, 2 p.m. as well, and we catch up with Liam Moreton, their midfielder, ahead of that particular clash later in the show. The women are, as always, represented in the show. We're speaking to Karen Connolly ahead of Leitrim's trip to Louth, based in Newry herself. She won't have too far to travel, but she's looking forward to Leitrim's third outing in the National Football League. 2 fairly facile victories so far, big margins of wins against Derry and Antrim, and their throw-in also 2 p.m. on Sunday. We'll be talking to Karen about her side's development over the close season and what they've learned from the 2 outings so far in the league. Now, in terms of soccer, of course, the SSE Airtricity League started last week, but Sligo Rovers away to Finn Harps last weekend. This weekend, they are at home. Tonight, in fact, they play St. Patrick's Athletic in their first home game of the season. Kick-off at 7:45 in the showgrounds in what will be a good night's entertainment despite the weather. The match, a late pitch inspection this afternoon, sees that game go ahead at 7:45 this evening. I speak to Colin Feely, the Sligo Rovers CEO, who's entering his first full season, having taken up the job midway through last year. He will be chatting to us about the developments off the pitch, including some Leitrim involvement in the club in the shape of their new sponsors. Avantcard, of course, based in Carrick-on-Shannon. They are the new primary sponsors of the club. We'll be talking to Colin Feely about their wall, similar to the Leitrim wall here. Sligo Rovers have generated some much needed funds for the club by the placing of tiles in the prominent position in the showgrounds just behind the main stand. So that's been a campaign that's been ongoing for a while. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Avantcard. We'll talk about the development of Niall Moreton and other Leitrim youngsters, as well as a bit of news on their scholarship programme in terms of how that's working on a practical level within the club and the opportunity that it does give to young footballers from the region who want to stay local for their education and their football. So plenty more to come on that. But let's not forget the other side of the county, which of course faces Longford, and they kickstart their SSE Airtricity Division 1 challenge tonight against the very controversial Shamrock Rovers B team, who are entered in the first division of the Airtricity League this year. I will be talking to Dara Doyle, their first team manager, ahead of their first game at the newly named Bishopsgate City Calling Stadium, as it was last year. Bishopsgate this year, that game 7:30 on Saturday evening. The very best of luck to Longford in their title hunt, and you'll be hearing Dara talk about his expectations and the club's expectations to be challenging for that title and promotion to the Premier Division at the end of the season. In terms of interviews, we'll also be talking to 2 up-and-coming youngsters who haven't been on the show before but are starting to make waves on the international stage as well as locally. Muireann Devaney, fresh from her 2 games against Iceland for the Irish International Under-17 women's soccer team last weekend in Waterford. We'll be chatting to her, as well as previewing the Irish Under-18 women's team travelling to Scotland this weekend with their member Hannah Johnson called in for the first time at international level. She'll be talking about that opportunity as well later in the programme. In terms of other things happening around the county, that is just the tip of the iceberg. The Connacht Indoor Track and Field Championships, they take place in Athlone IT over Saturday and Sunday. Lots of interest there from a Leitrim point of view. The Connacht Under-20 Championship semi-final, put off last weekend because of the weather, is now fixed for 2 p.m. on Saturday in Park Sean McDermott. Leitrim hosting Galway in that refixed game after the game was called off at late notice, should I say. last week. Sligo, they host Greystones in the Energia All-Ireland Rugby League in Division 2B of that tomorrow afternoon. 2:30 kick-off in Sligo Rugby Club in Hamilton Park near Strand Hill, and they'll be hoping to keep their continued push towards the top of the table against Greystones in that particular match. In swimming, Conor Lanigan of Trident Swim Club in Carrick-on-Shannon, he will be taken to the pool for the Dave McCullough International event in the north of Ireland, his first international appearance. The very best of luck to Conor as he takes on the best of what is in Ireland and Northern Ireland for that particular event. It's a big event every year, it takes place in the north, and the very, very best of luck to Conor as he gets into the water representing Ireland for the very first time. Venus Ed Lee, he is up against Bill Carney in the Connacht Diamond Masters final in Ahagower in Mayo tomorrow afternoon. So the very best of luck to him in Gaelic handball as he hopes to add another title to his ever-growing mantelpiece. I suppose he won the Handball Player of the Month. He won the GAA's Handball Player of the Year at last weekend's Sports Awards as well as the GAA Awards in the county. So congratulations to him on that. In local soccer, Manor Rangers, they travel to Ballysadare as their first game in a couple of weeks after the 2 cancellations over the last few weekends in the Connacht Cup. They now face Ballysadare in what they hope will get back to get that league campaign running again. They've had some really good league form. They're in the hunt and they'll be hoping to get as many of those games played in the next couple of weeks as possible. All the weather, obviously conditional on the weather, because the weather is promised not great this weekend. Carricktown, they're away to Arrow Harps in the first round of the Division 1 Cup, the Cleary Landscape and Pitch Maintenance Cup for first division sides in the Sligo Leitrim League. So the very best of luck to them as their title campaign, as we heard a couple of weeks ago with Jason Cavan, has ended. They will be hoping to maybe be able to challenge for a piece of silverware. They'll have a tough task. Some really good sides in that division, particularly Real Tubber, although they will have lost a couple of players to National League teams. Raf Guittaro has gone to Finn Harps and a couple of the youngsters are in with the under-19s in Sligo Rovers. So maybe a weakened Real Tubber might be there for the taking in one of the later rounds. They face Our Harps in the first game on Sunday morning. Both those soccer matches locally kicking off at 11 a.m. In terms of local rugby, Carricktown, they travel to Galway for a game against Our Ladies Boys Club at 7:30 on Saturday evening. They are 9 points off the top of the league and they'll be hoping to beat bottom side Our Ladies Boys in that game tomorrow night. And the very best luck to Sean McKeown and his charges as they are only 5 points off second place in that division. So another late surge could see them really mount a second successive promotion challenge. The very best of luck to them. While in Division 1A, Sligo travel to bottom side Buccaneers in a crunch relegation battle. It's Sligo's second team and they are 10 points ahead. They're 4 points ahead of Buccaneers at the bottom of the table. A bonus point victory for Sligo would see them put a bit of daylight between themselves and Buccaneers in what is effectively a 2-horse race to see who will be relegated from Division 1A in Connacht. So the very, very best of luck to them. Now, let's get into the meat of the show. But that's kind of the main bulk of what's happening around the county in terms of a news roundup and fixtures. Hopefully that won't be disturbed by the weather, but I will say please check with the clubs on their social media accounts as to whether those games do go ahead. There may be venue changes, there may be time changes, there may be cancellations because of the very, very inclement weather that we are finding around the county today and promised for over the weekend. Anyway, let's get on with the interviews. We're going to start with Gaelic games, where we'll be talking, first of all, with Donal Wrynn of the Leitrim Senior Footballers about their crunch game against Offaly on Sunday afternoon. Now, it's been a mixed bag for Leitrim in the Alliance National Football League Division 3 campaign so far. A great result in Derry with a draw against the home side. Cork came to Park Shaw and went away with both league points. And then there was the outing against Longford 2 weeks ago. Donal Wrynn joins me now to discuss how the side have been getting on since that disappointing result in Longford. Donal, welcome back to the programme.
Thanks, Lenny. Great to be back.
What's the mood like in the camp after that game against Longford?
Look, it's actually it's fairly upbeat, to be honest. We had quite a strong performance up in Derry, and we were a bit disappointed not to come away with 2 points that day. We played some really good football for the majority of the games, to be there. Cork, we played well in patches, but we were disappointed with that kind of spell before half time, and we didn't just click into gear then in the second half. And to be honest, Longford was fairly similar. We had a fairly strong first half, playing into a very difficult breeze, and we did quite well there. Second half, obviously, didn't go our way. We spent a bit of time looking at that and figuring out really where we went wrong. And no, I think as a group we've responded quite well, and we've a week and a half of solid training under our belts, and I think looking into the weekend now we're in good shape.
What can you tell us about that analysis? Where have you identified some of the issues from that game?
Well, look, I don't want to give away too much. No, look, there's some obvious things there. We were a little bit open at the back in the second half, particularly against Longford. I know we were man down for patches, but for a good chunk of it. But even before that, we were a little bit open, so we've taken a look at that. I suppose our kind of movement and for our kickouts, and we're probably not getting the percentages on the kickouts that we'd like to have done. So look, there's a bit of work been done on that. But like I said, the guys are responding fairly well to it, and we're fairly good nick, I think.
From your own point of view, what's the difference this year between Division 3 and having played in Division 4 in the past?
Look, you get punished for your mistakes pretty much without fail in Division 3. I think in Division 4 you could probably get away with some mistakes, and even simple as giving the ball away. You'd often get away with that in Division 4. That doesn't happen in Division 3. But I think for us to progress as a team, I think it's great that we're playing at that higher level, doing us the world of good.
How are you feeling ahead of the game on Sunday? Physically in good shape? You happy out? You've done really well in the game so far.
Look, I suppose I hadn't played. It's over 12 months since I had played an inter-county game, and I probably hadn't played at such an intense level for that length as well. And the 70 minutes, I suppose, takes its toll as well. So, no, I definitely felt it after the first kind of block of 3 games. You always do, but I think this year I felt it more so than ever. But no, thankfully now starting to come back around, and I think I should be fairly fresh now for the weekend. So, no, I'm enjoying it.
How difficult is it to come back after that break from the inter-county scene? Does it take you a while to get back up to speed?
Look, it certainly does. Don't denying that. Look, I was lucky enough last year. I played a lot of football with my club. We didn't have the most successful year, but I think I played nearly all our games, maybe bar one. So that definitely, just keeping in touch definitely helps. But it is another step up from club level, definitely in Leitrim. So it is a big step up. I think outside of the matches, the whole kind of, I suppose, the commitment that's involved, in terms of the preparation, even the fairly structured gym programs and all the rest. Kind of getting back into that routine takes a little bit of time, but a couple of weeks at it, and you're probably fairly up to pace. The games themselves, then just the extra 10 minutes, you wouldn't believe the toll it takes on your body. I suppose I think the games recently, I was watching Dublin Monaghan there before the break. I think they played 80 minutes. So most of the games are probably going on close to the 80-minute mark, which is considerably more than what you play in a club game. So it definitely makes it a little bit more difficult. But look, I think I'm getting there anyway.
In terms of your outside life outside of football, not playing county football, it must be great to have a kind of maybe a social life again, spend time with friends, family, loved ones. How is it kind of losing that part of your life? Not necessarily losing it, but reducing that amount of time you can give to that side of your life again, having had the experience of having that?
I don't know really. Like last year, I suppose it was work really that was keeping me away from playing with Leitrim. It wasn't that I needed a break or anything like that. I couldn't commit with work commitments at the time. So I didn't. As it turns out, I didn't have a whole pile of free time. But I suppose this year I'm actually living and working down in Kilkenny at the moment, so that's kind of an added problem to overcome, I suppose. It's only a short-term thing, but I suppose it does take its toll. You don't have much time for socialising and the like, as you said.
Well, listen, Donal, it sounds like you got plenty of time in the car at least to listen to Leitrim Daily and keep up in touch with everything that's happening from home. So I hope we're helping you in that regard. I'm sure you're familiar with a fair few of the podcasts at this stage with all the driving you're doing. Thanks very much and for joining me, and the very, very best of luck to you and the lads on Sunday afternoon.
Thanks very much for having us, Breifne. Cheers.
Now, after a big game of musical chairs last Saturday, the Leitrim Hurlers ended up playing their game in Breifne Park. It was originally fixed for Ballinamore, then Belturbet, and moved at the last moment to Cavan Town. Liam Moreton joins me now to discuss what ended up as a good result for Leitrim Hurlers, 13 points to 5, the final margin of victory over their hosts in the end, Cavan. Liam, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Breifne. Thank you.
It must be exciting to get back into it and to finally have a win on the table. A disappointing result against Fermanagh. Now it's back to business as usual for Leitrim Hurlers.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we needed the win, and we knew what we had to do. You know, after narrowly losing to Fermanagh a couple of weeks before that, you know, we were very disappointed. So, look, we were coming out of Cavan with nothing more than a win. You know.
In terms of the game, obviously the weather conditions absolutely horrendous. The under-20s match was called off at the same time, almost the same afternoon. What was the conditions like to play in?
Always dreadful. Now, I suppose the morning of the game, everyone was asking questions, was this game going to go ahead at all? And we arrived up to Breifne Park, and conditions just seemed to get worse and worse, you know, between it freezing and raining and then a shower of hailstones in the middle of the second half. You know, it was very, very difficult for both teams, I suppose. There was a very, very strong wind. We had the wind behind our backs in the first half, and I suppose that really helped us to push on, you know. And we I think it was something like 10 points to 3 at half time. So we just said in the second half then, you know, we'll just try and keep the ball, and that's what we did. And we outscored them actually in the second half as well, which was surprising, you know. Yeah,
no, it seemed like a miracle that the game went ahead. It was of course moved, as we said, a couple of times. How much of a distraction is that in the build-up to a National League game when it's in one venue and you get your head around that, and then it's moved and then moved again?
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, we weren't very happy with it. The manager rang me the morning of the game and was like, what will we do? Because he was a bit annoyed about the whole situation. I think it was a bit late in notice, being told 3 hours before a National League game that the game was, first of all, that the venue was being changed, and then secondly that the game was being brought an hour forward, which I thought was an absolute disgrace, you know, because we've lads travelling from Cork and Dublin, and it was just very, very tight for lads to get there in time. Like, we had to be there an hour ahead of schedule, and I thought it was a bit unfair, to be honest, at county standard, regardless of what county you are, Leitrim or Kilkenny or Cork, you know, we all deserve to be treated the same, and I feel that didn't happen on Saturday, you know.
Well, that's probably the reason we weren't at the game. Well, actually, no, it's definitely the reason we weren't at the game, because the game was changed so late that by the time we realised it, I never would have got to Cavan in time, so I didn't go over. It was disappointing from our end, but from a player's point of view, can you put that out of your mind in the dressing room 10 minutes, 15 minutes before you go out for that match?
Look, the lads were annoyed, you know, travelling to the game and that, but once we got to the dressing room and got settled in and got our warm-up done, we had forgotten about it, you know. You had to, there's no point in bearing down on these things, but it wasn't good enough, you know. But lads did forget about it, and we certainly used it to our advantage. We said we were coming out of Cavan with a win without any doubt, you know, and that we did.
Carl McDermott hit a load of points early on in the game and really set the result up for you. How big of a player has he been for the side over the last couple of years?
Look, Carl is a huge player. Really stepped up to the mark. We had no free taker. Gavin O'Hagan, with his red card against Fermanagh, I suppose he wasn't allowed to play, and then one of our other free takers, Sean O'Riordan, who was due to start, who was sick, so he was out as well. So Carl stepped up to the mark, and I have to say, you know, he really did keep us in the game in the first half and second half. You know, his free taking was exceptional, and I just have to tell him fair play for that. You know,
should Sean and Gavin be worried about their free taking position in the team?
Look, I don't think they'll be worried, but at the same time, we know now that there's other lads that can step up to the mark under pressure, and Carl really proved that on Saturday. You know, so fair play to him.
Now, this Sunday, trip to Markovitz Park. You know it's definitely happening in Markovitz Park. There's no storm forecast. Sligo, the opponents, obviously. You know them very, very well over the years at club and county level. How do you approach a game like this on Sunday when you know your opposition so well?
We know what Sligo are going to bring to the game. They're going to bring serious intensity. After winning the Nicky record last year, their confidence is up. And so why shouldn't it be, But we don't fear Sligo whatsoever. We know them pretty well. And I know if the lads can match the intensity that Sligo is going to bring, which I know we will, there's nothing to say we won't take Sligo on Saturday or Sunday, should I say.
In terms of that, I suppose, outlook on the game, as you mentioned, Nicky record champions last year, you've come up from the Lorimar. If you can compete with Sligo on this level, is there a reason to believe you can go on and actually reach a final or maybe even win the Nicky record cup this year?
Absolutely, yeah. There was never anything between us and Sligo. Sligo really upped the ante last year, and I have to give it to ourselves as well. Leitrim Hurling, there was a lot of work put in the last couple of years, and last year proved that too. We are going places it's up the ladder. We're going more than Sligo, so there's absolutely no reason as to why we can't match what Sligo did last year. And I really believe in the lads and the management structure that's there at the minute. There's absolutely no reason why we can't go up the steps of the Hogan stand next June again. If we put our minds to it, and we need to get a win under our belt the first round of the Nicky record and take it from there. But we're using this league as a platform to build on, and we were unfortunately fair enough against Fermanagh. We proved the last day against Cavan who we were, and that we are an upcoming team, and there's nothing to say we can't give Sligo a good game and give them a run for their money, on Sunday as well.
Will that Fermanagh result come back to bite you at the end of the league when the finals are being decided?
Well, hopefully not. We can't dwell on it now. It's past us. We just have to move on. We have Sligo and Lancashire left, so we just have to focus on what's in front of us and one game at a time. So our focus at the minute is just solely on Sligo, and coming out of Markievicz Park on Sunday with a win.
Now, you mentioned new management, or you mentioned that you're happy with the management this year. Ulcan Conway obviously has come in there with a kind of a new team, some new faces in the management team, but you're very familiar with them from your club days with St Mary's and with Carrick Hurling, should I say. In terms of the future going forward, what impact have they had on the team since last year's Lorimar final?
I suppose a change is always good, and we all know there was a lot of controversy around the management side of things, but I'm not going to get into that. But a change is always good, and I have to say, since the lads have come in, they've brought something new to the table. Even though a lot of lads, the Carrick lads, would have known Ulcan through Carrick Hurling and Alan O'Shea's selector, but we've Clive Beattie in there from Manor Hamilton, and we've a trainer, Adrian Moran, is in doing a few trainings with us every week. So the whole thing has really changed up, and lads have really clicked. And I strongly believe it's bringing us on another notch, So everyone's giving it hell for leather in training, and there's a lot of places up for grabs there. Nobody has a guaranteed position or guaranteed jersey from 1 to 15. So it's fantastic, that there is great numbers and there is lads to take any position. If you're not up to the mark, there's a lad just as good and better to come on.
Well, listen, Liam, thanks very much for spending a bit of time with us this morning. Great to chat to you, and the very, very best of luck to you on your challenge against Sligo on Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. in Markievicz Park. I'm sure all support will be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Thanks a million, Breifne. Appreciate it.
Now, the final side to talk about an inter-county action this weekend is the Ladies Footballers, and they face their third game in their National League campaign in Division 4 of the Women's Football National League. I'm joined by Karen Connolly, who's been in the Leitrim team for the first two outings. Karen, welcome back to the programme.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's been a bit of a big margin in both of the games so far. How much can we read into what have been very, very one-sided games for Leitrim ladies in their return to Division 4 action?
So I suppose Derry was our first game, and it was away. I suppose it was great to get a win off in the start of the league. We travelled up to Derry to Owenbeg, so we were playing on a 3G pitch, was probably favoured us maybe because we hadn't played on that before. We were playing on kind of mucky surfaces, so the legs were a bit fresher when we got onto the hard surface, so kind of that suited us a wee bit, I think. As for the Antrim game,
slightly different conditions for the Antrim game then.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. The Antrim game was a totally different game. Conditions on the day were awful. I think, was it Storm Ciara hit maybe on the Saturday and we were playing Sunday, so we didn't even know until that morning that the game was going to go ahead. And then when it did go ahead, the pitch, it was very wet, it was heavy, the ball, it's stuck in the ground. The conditions for the Antrim game were very, very poor. But look, I suppose at the end of the day, you still have to take away from it. Like, the conditions were the same for both teams. We put in a really good performance. We worked well as a team, moving the ball through the hands. And girls did really well up front and getting scores.
Yeah, it's nice to see some new names on the team sheet and some new names on the score sheet, and particularly Leah Fox last week when it came to the crunch. 4 goals, not bad for a 17-year-old coming into the team for her first season.
Yeah, Leah done really well. I suppose it's she had a good few players up there with her that had played senior football before, so it kind of probably helped her along as well. But yeah, she finished very well, so she was very happy with the game.
Not really a surprise to anyone who's been following ladies sport in the county for the last couple of years, but at the same time, still taking that step up, it's a big ask for some girls. Talk about your own performance for the last 2 games. You're a defender in that team. You've only conceded a couple of points in both games, so how much have you learnt about your defensive unit in the last 2 matches?
Yeah, I suppose the defensive team, or I suppose the defensive structure that I suppose we're trying to set up is working for each other off the ball and on all the ball. Them short runs is kind of what we're trying to achieve, and setting up a good defence structure, maybe even bringing back some of the half forwards, midfield, when needed, and then attacking with them as well. I suppose the defence really hasn't been tested, but I think this weekend now, when we play Louth, I suppose that will be the real test for us. They're kind of sitting on the same position we are. They have won 2 games, we've won 2, so it's all to play for.
In terms of the differences between this season and last, obviously, we've all heard about the issues that have been going on in ladies football in the county for the last couple of years. It's great to see you back on the front foot again. How has, or what has happened that's so different from a player's point of view?
From a player's point of view, I suppose there's a number of things really that have aided to it. Management obviously has come in a lot earlier. We've got new management on board this year, and it's great. I suppose it's kind of added a breath of fresh air to the team. More girls have come out as well, which makes training, a lot easier. You have big panels, you can get game time at training as well, which encourages people to come out. The competition for places is really high, so nobody ever feels safe in the team. So that drives you to go to training as well, even on these cold, wet evenings when sometimes you'd be inclined to miss it, but you don't. You just turn up because if you don't turn up, there's no chance of you getting playing.
Now, you're kind of training all over the place at the moment. You've girls from all over the county, as you mentioned. There's a really, really big panel. You're based in Newry on a day-to-day basis. There must be a fair amount of travel involved in your life at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose. Based in Newry, yeah, I live in Newry during the week, just for convenience, work-wise. But I don't really mind the travelling. I suppose it's like with every inter-county footballer and club footballer across the length and breadth of Ireland. You kind of have to train. We're not fortunate enough to have jobs really in kind of rural Ireland where we're kind of from. So you kind of just have to do the travelling, which it can be annoying and it can get draining at times. But you just have to look after yourself and be well prepared.
Well, that's maybe an hour and a half each way for training a couple of times a week. What do you do in the car to kind of keep your mind occupied, or just to keep yourself, I suppose, still interested and prepared to make that journey? Because it can be an awful long slog when you're kind of doing that commute 2 or 3 times a week just for football.
Yeah, I suppose it can. And I suppose I'm lucky enough, probably calling people even just to talk about training, talk about games. But then I suppose you kind of have to take your mind off the games as well, because you can't be constantly thinking about it as well. So even just listening to podcasts, the radio, that sort of thing, just keep my mind occupied all the time, and don't kind of focus too much and overthink it.
What's it like having so many players in the squad? You talked about the competition for places, but there's, I think, over 40 players in your squad at the moment. Is that realistic? Can you see the mood in the camp, particularly maybe the girls who haven't seen much game time so far this year? Can you keep those girls involved in the squad?
Yeah, I think we all know that no position is safe. Like I said, the competition is really high, and it's kind of like what you expect of a county panel. There's most county panels across the country are on them numbers, and yeah, like you say, on game days they all can't line out on the team sheet, it is pretty hard, and it's a hard blow to take when you're not named, even though you put in just as much effort as the girl sitting beside you. But we all are aware that the panel, will be rotated. Your position isn't safe just because you were playing in the last game. Even just on from last year, if you're talking about it, like last year was a pretty disappointing year for us. We had a smaller panel, and I suppose coming into this year, what we were just looking to do was looking to build and set a higher standard of football across the county, for Leitrim ladies. And I think that's what we're doing this year. So it's going to benefit the next generation coming through as well, from minors down to under 16s, that they're going to have, a higher standard of football set to them, and hopefully they'll be able to build on that then.
Of course, Louth are in action this Sunday, 2 p.m. in Cooley GA Club up there in Louth. Are you expecting much of a crowd to travel from Leitrim?
Hopefully we are. Like, the weather isn't favouring us again. I don't think it's given too good a weather, but yeah, hopefully we'll get a number of supporters that'll follow us up to it. I know it's a bit of a trek now, going right the whole way to Cooley, but hopefully we'll get some.
Well, if you're travelling from Newry, it's not the worst place in the world.
No, I'm actually pretty lucky. It's only going to take me about 20 minutes, half an hour to go back. So they'll hardly be on. They'll only be off the M1 and I'll be home.
It's probably easier to get there than it is sometimes from home to Carrick and Shannon or wherever you're playing for Leitrim.
I suppose actually, yeah, on that, like, we do travel all over, but sometimes if I was to leave training and to go from training to Newry or training to Rocinber, I could be just as well off just going back to Newry, because Newry, the roads are better going to it, and I don't have to get up as early for work in the morning, because I work in Kingscourt. So if I go from Leitrim to Kingscourt, it's nearly an hour and a half, 2 hours, whereas when I go from Newry, it's only 40 minutes. So it's catch-22 really on where I sleep at night.
Well, listen, on that note, Karen Connolly, the very, very best luck on Sunday afternoon against Louth in Division 4 of the Women's National League. Hopefully you keep the winning run going, and the very, very best luck to you and your teammates on Sunday afternoon.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Now, it's been a couple of months in the waiting, but finally the SSE Airtricity League returns to the region. Sligo Rovers at home for their first home game of the season. They host St Patrick's Athletic on Friday night, because there's also a game on Monday. They travel to Dalymount Park to play Bohemians over the weekend. It's a busy weekend, and I'm joined by the CEO of Sligo Rovers, Colin Feely, to talk about developments off the pitch in the off-season and also how the team is faring out into this new 2020 season. Colin, welcome to the show.
Hi, Breifne. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Now, obviously, you're coming into your second season as CEO of the club, and there's been a lot of developments off the pitch. Let's deal with that first before we get into how the team are performing on the pitch. First of all, from a local point of view here in County Leitrim, great to see a good local Leitrim business, albeit a national focused business, Avant-Garde, on the front of the jersey. That's a great sign-in for the club. Yeah,
we were delighted to get it over the line. It was something that we've kind of been speaking to them and dealing with them probably November and December, and finally we were able to announce it in January. I think everyone is happy with the new jerseys. The home and away one is out now since maybe a couple of weeks ago, and everyone's delighted with the design of it and how they look, and I think everyone will agree that it looked pretty nice up in Finn Harps on Friday night. And it's great to have a company the size of Avant-Garde. They're great for the region in terms of employment, and they employ plenty of people in this region from Leitrim, Roscommon, Longford and Sligo, so it's great to have them on board, definitely.
Yeah, they really have literally been the lifeblood here for so many families within the community here in South Leitrim and beyond, as you mentioned. So obviously they've come on board in a big way. I see their staff are now wearing jerseys to work and all sorts of kind of extra promotional stuff for the club. It must be nice to have a sponsor that really engages at that level and kind of gets involved, not just providing a check, although that is important, of course.
No, definitely, yeah. We want to build a kind of a relationship with them and a rapport with their staff. There's going to be plenty of their staff members coming here on Friday night as well. We'll make sure they're looked after. It's important just to have that relationship, not just with the hierarchy or whatever you want to call it in a business or in a sponsor, but their kind of day-to-day staff, the people that are on the ground running the business. Chris in the office up there is saying that it's all the talk up there, so it's great for us to have that relationship with the staff of Avant-Garde, and we're looking forward to seeing them on Friday night.
There is one new arrival that's definitely going to be in the showgrounds at every home game this season, and that of course is your new wall. Now Leitrim GA had a similar project here. You launched a wall in the showgrounds. It seems to have been a massive success for the club in terms of giving people that piece of identity within the club, but also raising much needed funds.
Yeah, of course. As a club here, we're like any club in the country. We're looking for ways, new ideas to, I guess, obviously raise vital funds for us to keep the show on the road, so to speak. And this is an idea we've seen it in various other places, including with Leitrim GA, as you said. It's something that I've been to places like Anfield, and there's not just a wall there, but like in the ground of memorial plaques like this. But it's not just a memorial wall here. It's certainly for supporters that are still alive and still supporting the club and whatever, and for those as well that some families have bought tiles for those who have passed away. So it's a great mixture of people on the wall, supporters and ex-players and families that have supported the club. It's something that we wanted to do, and it's definitely been a great success. We've over 300 tiles to go up now before Friday night, and I'm sure people will be happy and they like the look of it, and they can see it for the first time on Friday at the St. Pat's match, and it's something we're delighted with. Yeah, it's gone really well.
There are, of course, some other new arrivals. So let's talk about the players that have come in over the off-season. Some interesting signings from the US, from Finland, but also some local lads coming in. Darren Noon, I know, is a new arrival in the team. He made his debut on Friday night up in Finn Park. There's also a couple of other faces there as well. Talk to us about kind of how the team is shaping up, and maybe if there's any more arrivals that we can expect before people hear this on Friday.
Yeah, so starting with new arrivals. Since last year, we got Timu Peninkangas from Finland. He's 6'4", left-sided defender. Possibly played out of position in Ballybuffet as a left wing back, although he can certainly fill the gap there and play that role. But he's probably a little more comfortable inside. I think he'd be happy enough with his kind of performances in pre-season and in training. Certainly. He settled in quite well to life in Sligo. He's moved in here to an apartment with his partner, and they're happy off the pitch. It's something that's important to us to show them a bit of care and attention in that regard. It's important that they're happy in their day-to-day lives, and which will hopefully benefit them on the pitch as well. It's the same with Will Seymour. He's come from America. He's living now in Sligo with his girlfriend. They're happy out. They're enjoying their time here. He settled in to the town pretty well. It's actually only last night he was out with a local club coaching their girls team, Ballymote Celtic, and it's that type of thing. We try and integrate the lads, especially the new lads, into Sligo and into the culture, and it all helps out. In a more local than Irish lad, Darren Noon started last Friday night. He's again settled in well here. Jesse Devers from Ballina, another new signing. He was at Finn Harps in Galway, and he had a little bit of a trial period with us in pre-season, and he impressed Liam enough to get a contract or whatever. He's done well. To be fair, I think he was a bit of a bright spark when he came on Friday. I thought he kind of livened the game up a little bit. Was definitely a threat against Finn Harps when he came on, so he'll be happy enough with his little cameo. Gary Buckley from Cork City. Gary's an experienced League of Ireland player. Liam said lately, I think that he always recognised him as a good player down in Cork, someone that impressed him, but since he's seen him kind of day to day and in games, he actually thinks he's a better player than he thought before, so that's a positive. Gary, he'll be looking to kick on and score some goals from midfield this year.
Now, of course, also on top of that, Danny Kane was announced during the week. Minor operation, will be out for a couple of weeks, if not a month. The injury list is mounting up. How big of a concern is that for the club and I suppose for the supporters?
Yeah, it's always a concern when you have some injuries. Obviously, we've got the two main ones. John Mahon with his fractured tibia. Regan Donlan's got a shoulder injury. Danny Kane is a very slight niggle on his ankle, so he's got a very minor operation on that just to clear up something. And it was something that was niggling at him for maybe a few months now. It sort of flared up a little bit, but as I said, he was in and out in the same day. It's a very, very minor operation, and the surgeon was very happy. It went very well, so he'll be back in the fold. He'll be back training in the next couple of weeks, and back fit again, ready to go for the season. Other than that, Johnny Dunleavy is fine. Yeah, he was on the bench on Friday night. He's raring to go now this week, so back in contention. So look, it's always a concern. We've one injury is too much. When you have 3 or 4, it's not nice. But look, we've a squad capable of putting in a performance on Friday and in any game. So we're confident in the lads that are going to be available, and we know they can go and get us results.
We better finish off by talking about another Leitrim connection, and that, of course, is your centre midfielder, Donal Wrynn, voted player of the match by the Sligo Rovers supporters from Finn Park on Friday night. It's nice to see, from a Leitrim point of view, it's nice to see his development within the squad. How important is it to have local lads representing the Sligo and the neighbouring counties in the squad in the bit of ed? Yeah,
it's massive to us. Our underage structure is really based around those local regional players, not just Sligo lads. We've plenty of lads from Mayo, Roscommon, a couple from Donegal, and certainly Leitrim as well. Niall is definitely a fantastic talent, an Irish international. He's got a scholarship in IT Sligo. It's one we've set up. He started in September. He's going through his college, and he's still able to play full-time football with us here, so it's great for him. He can get his education while playing in a professional football setup, which is probably the ideal for him. He's also looking at life after football, so he'll have a qualification in whatever it is, 3 or 4 years, and he can continue on playing with us. But that the local player is always important to us. I think the fans can recognise it and kind of respect the local lads, and they want to see them doing well. And Niall's certainly done well on Friday, and as he has done before. I remember his debut, or not his debut, but one of his first games against Shamrock Rovers on the last day of the season. I think it was season before last, and he was outstanding on the night, and just he's kicked on from that really. He's a mainstay now in the squad and really pushing for that starting 11 spot now for this season.
Now, you've touched on something that will interest certain parents around the county whose sons and daughters, it must be said, play soccer at maybe Sligo Leitrim level or in the Sligo Rovers underage camps. And you mentioned that Niall is full-time college and full-time football. Now, my understanding is you train during the day. Is there a clash there? How does that work? How does it, I suppose, the logistics of that, how does his day look in terms of when he's in college, when he's at football?
Yeah, it's something we've had to kind of get over. It's something we would have kind of agreed with the college. We kind of look at the players individually. You might try and get a gap in their day, so we would have spoke to the timetable and section at the college, and they've been great for us. They really helped us and facilitated us. The lecturers as well have been fantastic. Where there has been maybe a day or two where they've missed a lecture, we've caught up with them and make sure Niall has been in to get his notes or whatever, and he can catch up in his own time. We've had to be flexible too. There might be certain football sessions we need him here for, whereas there might be a gym session that we realistically we know that he could do that in his own time in the evening. He knows what to do in the gym. He has his own program, so he can go and do that when he's finished college, during the day. So there's flexibility from both sides, and I think that's important. We certainly don't want to be putting pressure on these guys. There's enough going on these days. We got to be wary of stress levels on them. It's stressful enough being a full-time professional footballer, having to perform in training every week and then perform in front of 2,000 and 3,000 people at the weekend without having to worry about kind of missing a lecture or catching up on studies and exams coming up. So you really have to be flexible, and you got to put the student first and the player first, and the rest will fall into place. But it's worked out pretty well for Niall. He's very happy, and both college and football seem to be going well for him. So fair play to him.
And if there is, I suppose, a parent or even a player out there considering their options for third level, I know CAO time is around this time of year. There's still a change of mind, but even for subsequent years, can they get more information on that program from the club or from the college or both?
Yeah, both really. I'm always available. My email address is visible, I think, on the website, or our phone number. So yeah, anyone with any questions at all can just pop us a quick phone call. We'll talk to anybody who needs information, or we're a very, very open club here. So any parents looking for information on that IT Sligo scholarship or the link up, it's all available. Just give us a shout and we look after them.
Excellent. Well, listen, Colin, the very best of luck. First home game of the season. You expect, I presume, a big bumper crowd of maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people in the showgrounds on Friday night. Promises to be a great night. There'll be good Leitrim representation there as well, with Avant-Garde bringing a mass from Carrick and Shannon and the surrounding areas. So the very best of luck to you, and I hope you get the results you're looking for on Friday night.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks a million. We're looking forward to it, and hopefully anyone that comes here will have a good experience and enjoy the season ahead.
That, of course, is a 7:45 kickoff. We better remind people in the showgrounds, it's not the traditional Saturday night because of the 2 games over the weekend. It is Friday night this week, and always a good night out. Love going out to the showgrounds, and the very best luck to Sligo Rovers on Friday night. Thanks very much, Colin.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you soon.
Of course, it's not just in the Premier Division where there's action in the region this weekend. We look at the First Division now, and I'm joined by Longford Town's Dara Doyle, ahead of his first full season as manager of the club. Dara, welcome back to the programme.
Thanks very much. Great to speak to you, Breifne.
In terms of your, I suppose, next couple of months, it's your first season in the main job. You came in at the very end of last season when Neil Fenn left to go to Cork City, and how has your last couple of months been since you got the job on a full-time basis? I know we spoke to you a couple of weeks ago, but with pre-season now done, you're ahead of a league campaign that you probably didn't even really expect whether it was going to come round or not. There was so much uncertainty in the last few weeks. How was your frame of mind coming into the opening of the season tomorrow night?
Yeah, listen, it's all good. Like you say, it was a long off season, and when I was appointed at the end of last season, really got straight to work with retaining players, getting new players on board, getting training ground sorted. So really lots to do as the manager of the club to get ready for pre-season, which we officially came back in early January. We did a couple of sessions in December just to keep ourselves ticking over. Once or twice a week we did a pitch session, and then we'd have a gym session once at the weekend just to keep going. And in preparation for when we get into pre-season, that we'd have done a little bit already, which a lot of the lads had done. Pre-season itself has gone very well. We've played 5 or 6 Premier teams. We've had a number of in-house games, so that's gone well from that point of view. And like I say, we've retained and signed really good players and added 1 or 2 from the underage structure into the first team squad. So from our point of view, with the first team, we're raring to go come start the season.
Obviously made the playoffs last year, having looked like potential league winners early on in the season. Kind of dipped off towards the end, but the last couple of games it really picked up with a bit of excitement as the playoffs progressed. What's the expectation going into this year's campaign?
And the expectation is for promotion. I mean, we've retained, I feel, some of the strongest players at the club. We'd 1 or 2 that moved on, and Anthony Breslin to Bowes, and obviously Conor Kenna retired, and then we had Aaron Dobbs who moved on to Shells before I was appointed. So we've retained really strong players. We've added really good players to the group. You mentioned in last season where we had a little fall. It was possibly the mid part of the season I felt that hurt us a bit, where it was sort of got to a stage where we were win-lose to a point for 5 or 6 weeks, which didn't help. But in the big picture, if we had been able to, in some of them games where we had a number of chances, take some of them chances, I felt we could have won them games. So we were probably lacking that out-and-out centre forward that scored us loads of goals last year to put us where we wanted to be at the top end of the table. That's something we looked at the end of the season, and we identified a few players that we'd happy to get in. And thankfully, the couple of targets that we looked at from an attacking point of view with Rob Manley and James English and Niall Barnes as another wide player to come in have been really, really positive steps for the club, and I think they'll be great additions and really help fire us to the goals that we need this year to be where we want to be.
So are you looking at winning the title, or is it through the playoffs that you think is the route to that promotion?
We'd like to win the league. I think that's good. We've said that to the lads from day one, that has to be our aim at the club with the players that we have there and the ambition and everything going for the club. So that has to be our ambition. I mean, you've seen last season, you mentioned the playoffs at the end against Cavan, in which we lost some penalties, although ourselves we were the better side. We didn't get the goals that we needed to win the game, and then it goes to, like you're saying, a penalty shootout. It can go any way, and unfortunately on that night that didn't go our way. So we want to avoid the possibility of a lottery and going to penalties, and the heartache that we felt that night. We don't want to even get to them stages this year. If we can go and win the league and perform game after game after game, hopefully that will put us in a strong position where we can challenge to win the title.
On a personal level, I mentioned it's your first season in charge from day one. How has that compared to previous years when you would have been, say, number 2 in clubs like this?
Yeah, just a lot busier, to be honest. Lots more responsibility and a lot more decision making that has to be done that really falls on you, and it'll be your decision making on a lot of the things. So that's where you have to come up with. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions on players and offers and contracts and just decision making in general. But I think that's the only real part of things that I think has been that bit of extra. I've always been heavily involved in the last few years in pre-season and preparing for the season. But really now, when you're the manager of the club, everything falls down on you as regards to decisions to be made. And listen, I'm happy to be in that position to do that this year.
Now you're talking about a title campaign. In terms of rivals who you see challenging for that title, I know Galway have invested heavily over the winter, as have Bray. I suppose I've brought in a couple of names. UCD are always a fairly nice type of footballing side that always compete in the first division. Who do you see being amongst the teams that are going to be thereabouts at the end of the season?
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple there, and I do feel that all of them will be in the mix. You've mentioned Galway, who have invested heavily in the squad in the off-season. They've brought in a number of experienced players that should stand to them and help them to challenge and be a more formidable side than last season. You have Drogheda, who've retained a lot of players similar to ourselves and added a bit of quality to their group, so I'd expect them to be challenging also. You mentioned UCD have come down, and I think we'll need to see how they start the season to where they can possibly go. Again, they've a lot of younger students in the team this year, with a lot of the more experienced ones having moved on at the end of last season or during the season last year, which might not help them for this season to have a push for automatic promotion straight away, but time will tell on that. Cove seems to have recruited pretty well, and you have Cavan with Pat Devlin, who's a very shrewd manager, and although he's lost a number of players, I'm sure he'll expect to be in and around the mix. So it seems to be an exciting year where a number of teams have strengthened and will have ambitions to be challenging at the right end of the table. So no, it makes for a good season, I think.
One team who won't be in the league this year is Limerick. They competed last year despite the off-field issues. Tommy Barrett very vocal about where that was going. They're no longer in the league. They didn't apply for a licence in the end despite taking the FAI to court. What's your take on the whole situation in Limerick? Are you disappointed that Treaty United aren't in the competition this year?
But no, listen, I'm really disappointed that Limerick don't have a club that can be in League of Ireland football, and they should, and the city of Limerick deserves to have a team. Now, the way, if you look at some of the stories coming out of Limerick last season, even as regards of the Sean Russell incident with players that weren't looked after, and the standards that we should have in this league and player welfare, that wasn't always right there. So I mean that some of the things that happened at the club weren't great. But as a club, I would have really liked to have seen Limerick get their house in order and have a squad in the league that could challenge. It might be the case that they need to get their house in order and look to get back in next season.
One team who are taking their place for this season at least is Shamrock Rovers Reserve, Shamrock Rovers B, and they're your first opponents tomorrow night in the new Bishopsgate, the new name for what I suppose most people would know as Strokestown Road, or there's been a couple of other sponsorship deals over the years. How much are you aware of what Shamrock Rovers B are going to look like on the pitch, and is it kind of weird, because I know the clubs have said they didn't want to play against Shamrock Rovers, didn't want them in the league unanimously, but yet here they are playing on Saturday night. What's your thoughts on the whole situation?
Yeah, I think all the other 9 clubs made it quite clear to the FEI and I think it was the National League executive or whatever it might have been, that they were not in favour of Shamrock Rovers having a reserve team in the first division. From a personal point of view, I don't think a first division is a place for a reserve team. And we're not like other countries in Spain, Germany, you name it, on the continent, that have 4 or 5 full-time professional leagues and can have a second team further down them. But we're not like that. We have one more or less professional league, and like I say, more or less a part-time first division at the moment. So I don't feel it's a place for a reserve team. But in saying that, they've marketed themselves as Shamrock Rovers too. So I would expect them to have a totally separate squad to the Premier Division squad, and that's something that we don't have clarity at the moment. We haven't been given any type of squad list for Shamrock Rovers, so we don't know what possible players they're going to use. We don't know what rules are going to be legislated as regards the last time they were in the league. They were allowed a goalkeeper plus 3 first-team players drop down to play with the reserves, but as the second team as they were, and I don't think that takes the integrity of the league into question. And in my opinion, when on one certain week, and it could work for you or against you, that one particular week 3 or 4 good players from the first team drop down to play in the first division, and they may get a result, and then the following week they may have no players from the first team dropping down. So from that point of view, it takes some of the results and questions the integrity of them with that. So that's why I feel it's very important that the FAI are strong on this, and they ensure that Shamrock Rovers, like every single other team in the first division, give in a first division squad list, and only players from the first division squad list should be allowed to play in the first division. I have no problem with that, but I feel it's wrong for first team players from a Premier Division squad should be dropping down to play in the first division. I know it's like I think I said it to someone else. It'd probably be akin to us, similar if Sligo were playing on a Friday night and 4 or 5 players weren't used, and us ringing Sligo up and saying, well, they didn't play, can we have 4 players to play in our first team on Saturday night? And I think that's that thing that a lot of clubs are having difficulties with accepting. And I know I'm getting asked a lot of questions about it in particular, and that's because we played them first. And it's not a pop at Shamrock Rovers whatsoever, because how they're doing things at that club, it's excellent. You look at the facilities they have there for the underage side and their academy, and listen, they're streets ahead of everybody else at the moment. They really are, and they've developed a lot of really, really good players who I feel this year will perform and do well for them in the first division. But I think that's my take on it. But I just really want to concentrate on getting playing. If we're playing them this weekend, we'll have a squad and a team ready to take them on and do what we need to do to get a result in the game, and that's what we need to be focused on.
You say if you're playing them, is that still a question mark over that?
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard differently at the moment. I know they were talking about it previously, and the 9 clubs playing seem to be quite unanimous in their decision making on it. I haven't heard anything differently as far as I'm concerned. I haven't been told enough. So I'm preparing a squad to play them at the weekend. If anything else comes out, we assume any type of statement will be made from the clubs and chairman and whoever's involved in the first division alliance. So from my point of view, that's something that I'd stay out of to a point, because my job is to have the team prepared to play on match day. I'll make sure I have that regardless of who are playing every single weekend.
Okay, well, obviously, we are recording this a couple of days before it goes out on Friday, so today is Wednesday as we're recording this, so I'm sure local media will let you know whether that game is going ahead or not if you're listening to this and thinking of going along. Kick-off at 7:30 in Bishopsgate, which is formerly City Calling Stadium on the Strokestown Road in Longford, and I'm sure Dara and his team would appreciate all your support on Saturday evening in Longford. Dara, thank you very much for joining me, and the very best luck for the season and, of course, for the game, whatever happens on Saturday evening.
Yeah, listen, that's very much appreciated. Thanks very much.
Now, last weekend was dominated by Storm Dennis, but there was some sport that went ahead, and we did mention on Monday's show when we spoke to one of our coaches, Dave Rooney, that we will be chatting to Muireann on this show today, and I'm delighted to say Muireann Devaney joins me now after being involved with the Irish Under-17 ladies team last weekend. Muireann, welcome back to the programme.
Oh, thanks, Breifne.
Muireann, tell us about what it's like to pull on a green jersey and represent your country in international games, because it must be a hell of a buzz.
Yeah, look, it's great. It's getting to the season now where it's competition time and everybody's looking to get onto the first 11, or in other cases onto the squad for the camp. Lucky enough, I was on the first 11 for the 2 games, so I was delighted with that, and it's just a great experience. Look at when you have big crowd turning out on a wet, windy day in Waterford, it makes it so enjoyable, just a good atmosphere around the place.
Obviously, Iceland, known in international circles now for having invested really, really heavily in their underage teams, and they overshoot the mark in terms of where they should be for the population that they have in that country. They've really stepped up at underage level. What was it like playing against them compared to some of the teams you've played against at that level before?
Yeah, definitely. It was a massive step up from when we went to Lithuania. I think we had it a bit too easy when we went out there. Iceland really put us to the test on Friday and Sunday. We had done a bit of looking into some of their players and did a few signing professional contracts at 16 and 17, and a few of them were nieces of some of the greatest players that ever played soccer for Iceland. And look, it's great to get the experience to play against some players that would be like you'd never see them in the Women's National League in Ireland. So look at it, it's class when you're playing against such good standards.
You must be getting used to these kind of big stages now, whether it's with Leitrim Underage or most recently when you made your debut. Did you make your debut at Leitrim? Was that your first senior game last week?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So it's been all go for you for the last few weeks. In terms of this kind of stage, the Women's National League last year, you've been on that international scene for a couple of years now. Do you take this in your stride, or do you realise the significance of representing your country?
Oh yeah, I definitely do, but sure, you just have to take it as another game. You can't really dwell on it too much, or you mightn't get the performance that you want for yourself. So look, you just gotta take it as it's just another match and go out and try and do what you can.
Of course, these teammates last weekend are your rivals week in, week out in the Women's National League. How weird is that? Kind of girls you might have had a kick from or a kick against in the last season, and now you're working with them in an Irish context.
Sure, it's good crack, I suppose, when you're kicking them and they're kicking you in the Women's National League, and then some of them are your best friends then when you go into camp. So look, it's brilliant. It makes it very enjoyable to get a laugh out of it, and it's good. Yeah, it's good crack.
Is there that little bit of rivalry though at the same time underneath it all about maybe who won the last game between you?
There's always a bit of slagging, but sure, it wouldn't be the same if there wasn't.
One of those instances, I suppose, you came off in the second game with about 10 or 15 minutes to go and replaced by Kate O'Dowd. She was on your team last year in Sligo, won't be on your team this year after moving to Peamount. Has that come up at all?
Not really. We didn't really pass much either. There was a bit of questions, but sure, look, it's got to do with if she made the move probably wanted a change in football. She'd been with Rovers for 2 years and maybe she just wanted a change of scene. So that's everybody to their own. Very
diplomatic. I like it. What's next for you, Moreton? Obviously, the Women's National League starts back here in Sligo this year for the under-17 team. You made your debut with the senior side in Leitrim. Are you hoping to keep both of those teams the whole way through the summer?
Oh yeah, definitely. Look, sure, we'll take every match as it comes and see what brings us to. Just look, we've the elite now at the end of March for this. We'll play Serbia, Austria, and Denmark. And hopefully if we qualify from there, we go to the Euros. So look, that would be a dream come true. So at the moment, the Ireland 17s is my main priority. But look, everything will fall into place. Normally does. So
yeah, it's 10 years since Ireland got to a European final at that level, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility. That team, of course, with the likes of Denise O'Sullivan, Megan Campbell, who've gone on to be, and others who've gone on to represent Ireland at senior level. What's the expectation going into those games? Like Serbia, Austria, and Denmark would be fairly strong at that level in women's football.
Yeah, they would, but look, we've been given a good account of ourselves so far. Like, we went out to Lithuania and we got 3 very impressive wins. We 10-0, most scores were high, we didn't concede any goals. And we really put it up to Iceland again this weekend. Last year, the 17s went out to Iceland and played them, lost 5-2 and 3-0. So I think we're progressing, and we have high hopes for ourselves, and we're hoping to maybe put a mark in the calendar for May and head to Sweden. So hopefully we can do that.
What kind of a difference has James Scott made to the whole campaign?
Oh, look at his class. Like, literally everything he says, you take it on board. He's that good. Like, the amount of time and effort he puts into getting player profiles of the other team, giving feedback, everything. Like, he just puts his heart and soul into it, and look, that makes it so much easier for us. Then we know what we have to do when we go out, and we just have to play because he has all the hard work done in the background.
I suppose we better mention before we finish up, congratulations on the Connacht title with St. Clair's Comprehensive as well. Massive achievement for the girls up there to keep those titles coming in over the years.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Sure, a Connacht final every year since I was in first year. So hopefully we can keep that going now and go a step further like 2 years ago and get to the All-Ireland final. So hopefully that's the next on the plan.
Well, listen, it sounds like you're ridiculously busy, Moreton. The very best of luck to you with all of your different endeavours, with the school, with the county, with the club, and now with Ireland. And hopefully there's more success down the line for you. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks, Breifne.
Now, fresh from international representation from a young female from Manor Hamilton, it's like buses. You get one and then a second one comes along straight away afterwards. This time I'm delighted to say it's Hannah Johnson who is representing her country, and she is been called into the Ireland Under-18 squad for rugby for their training camp and their match against the Scottish Under-18s this weekend in Inverclyde in Scotland. Hannah joins me now. Hannah, welcome back to the programme.
Thanks, Breifne. Thanks for having me.
It is a busy period for you. I know you're just fresh from the Connacht Championship win with St Clair's comp a couple of weeks ago with the girls' Gaelic football team. Murren, of course, a part of that as well. But now you're facing a little bit of a journey over to Scotland to have a first opportunity to play at international level with the Irish Under-18 side. You must be absolutely delighted.
Yeah, I am. It's a great opportunity. I've never had anything like this before, so yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Now, obviously, we've talked to you on the programme. You've been involved with Connacht at interprovincial level, even won an interprovincial, I think, 18 months ago with Connacht at under-18 level. This is a bit of a step up, though. What's the thoughts going through your mind ahead of the weekend?
Thoughts just play to the best of my ability and just show them what I can do. Really, it's just rugby at the end of the day. And sure, like, we're all in the same boat, really. All the girls are coming from provincial level. It's not like they've all been on the squad before. This is the first year of an under-18 15 squad. So yeah, just do my best, I suppose.
How has your season been going? I know you had an injury. I think you hurt your arm. Did you break your hand earlier in the year?
Yeah, so obviously I broke my hand there, but it's fully recovered now. So everything rugby-wise and football-wise are going well. Tell
us about the camp. What actually will be involved? When do you leave to Scotland?
Our flight is Friday afternoon, and then we'll arrive in Scotland, and then I think just take it easy Friday evening, relax, and then Saturday will be a day of training. We'll have a few sessions, and then Sunday we're supposed to play the Scotland Under-18s, and then fly back Sunday evening.
It's all very, very exciting. Any idea, really, because it's the first time the squad's been together, there's no real expectation going into the game, but would you be hoping to get a result, or is it the performance that's all that matters at this level?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I always hope to win, but yeah, sure, like, I really don't know. I don't know what the Scottish standard will be. I know their seniors are pretty good, but then if you compare them to Ireland, like, Ireland normally, our senior women would normally beat our women, but they're not yet, really.
As well as this, obviously, it comes on the back of strong performances for Connacht and Sligo, your club. Tell us a bit about the team in Sligo and who else is involved and how your season's been going so far.
Yeah, well, this season and this year we've been really good. We have a really good team. They've developed a lot in the last year. Yeah, we've been doing well. We're in it's a plate final, I think, in the next few weeks against Ballina. So that's good. I mean, it's a problem. It was like last year because there wasn't enough numbers for it. But no, yeah, we're doing really well this year.
Will you be involved with Connacht again this season? Obviously, under-18 or under-19 into provincials?
Yeah, hopefully, that's the plan.
In terms of, I suppose, your career going forward, do you find it difficult to keep the two balls in the air, literally, in terms of the rugby and the Gaelic football? How do you manage to juggle both?
Well, I mean, it's okay. Like, it's busy. It's always busy, but I like it. I like the challenge of it. Yeah, no, but it's good. Like, I wouldn't want it any other way.
But it's hard keeping everybody happy when you've got school and club.
I know,
and
it
club.
is. Yeah, yeah, that's the biggest challenge, I suppose. Once you can get past that, it's fine, really.
Yeah, well, listen, Hannah, I want to wish you the very best of luck to you on Sunday and Saturday, I suppose, over the whole camp of the weekend, but the game on Sunday as well. And I hope you're involved, and I hope you get a chance to play and obviously stay injury-free as well. So the very, very best of luck to you and your teammates as you kind of take that next step in your rugby career. It's great to follow you over the last few months and years with Connacht Rugby, with Sligo Rugby. So the very, very best of luck to you.
Thank you, Breifne. Thanks so much.
And that, folks, is all we have time for today. In fact, it's way more than we had time for today. We didn't want to leave anybody out, though, so we hope you enjoyed our roundup of everything to do from a sporting context over the weekend. Whether you're heading to Park Sean, the Showgrounds, Markovich Park, or up to Cooley with the girls, or even Bishopsgate, Bishopsgate in Longford for Longford Town's game tomorrow night. It promises to be an exciting weekend of action wherever you happen to be. I'm probably going to go to most of them, and I will be reporting back to you on Monday, as usual, with all the action from the weekend. I'll be back tomorrow with a look at what's on over the weekend around the county. Talk to you then.